So, good morning, you guys. I did a video a few minutes ago talking about who I think should be the winner of the men's casino gauntlet match, receiving a contract for an AEW championship. And what I also want to say is that I want to do one for the women's. And I also want to mention, too, like I said in my other video, that I want a successful cash in. Because if you remember TNA Wrestling, they would do Feast or Fired. And what usually happened with Feast or Fired is that if there was a shot for the X Division or the tag team title, somebody would usually win that. But if it was for the heavyweight championship, I don't believe they had a winner, or maybe once they did really, but most of the time they would not have a winner for that. And I actually remember, how they had Kurt Angle, and it was almost like, he had like a bunch of cash-ins on him. He lost all the titles except for the heavyweight championship. So, I believe it was against Kazarian or something like that, but that really pissed me off, But the point of it is that you do not want to have a casino gauntlet match and have people lose all the time, really. Because it's like, why would I go through all of that to win this opportunity? And why would I, do like with the Royal Rumble? A lot of people complained about that. Why would a wrestler want to go through the Royal Rumble if they're going to lose at WrestleMania? So you have to make sure when I'm thinking about this, I have to think about successful cash-ins. So the first person I want to say is my wild card. I would say Nyla Rose. And the reason why I would do Nyla Rose is I've said this many times about AEW. One of the biggest problems that they have with this company is that they don't push powerhouses. Powerhouse Hobbs is lost on the roster. Nyla Rose should have been the first women's champion, not skinny ass Rio, really. So, and Nyla Rose can talk on the microphone. So imagine if you made her a member of the Don Callis family. Imagine if you made her a member of the Hurt Syndicate. Because she does have that bigger body look, really. So I really think that you could do something with that, or even in Ricochet's faction. I think Nyla Rose is extremely underrated. It would surprise people, but she would have the talk and the charisma, really. And, if you want to do Toni Storm versus Nyla Rose, if you want to do Mercedes versus Nyla Rose, you have, a very loud, bigger body person, really. And I think that would work. The other thing is that June is LGBTQ month, and, they don't have any trans wrestlers in WWE, really, so this would kind of be a statement to say how progressive we are, really. And then if I was WWE, I would be talking to Nyla Rose and being like, hey, you know what? You're a bigger body person. You can talk on the microphone. Yes, you're trans, and you could be our first trans wrestler, and they can make a lot of money off of her, and they can kind of have her there. There's a lot of just, I sold out and I cash in if I go to WWE type of thing, really. But I think AEW has a lot of opportunity in Nyla Rose. So she would be my wild card and my 5 choices. I think the next choice you should do, I think the person who should get it the most is Athena, because what she should do is 2 things. That number one, that if she wins, she should cash in on Mercedes to take the TBS title off of her. If Mercedes ends up winning. Or she can use that, fuck that. She should use that. If Mercedes wins, she should just use the title opportunity to take the women's championship off of her right away, really. So Mercedes is almost I went through all of that just for somebody to take it off me easily, just to piss with her. And I think that what you could do with Athena is one of 2 things. You can take the ROH title off of her at, the Supercard of Honor show. And I don't remember where she won the women's title, but what she should do is at Death Before Dishonor or Final Battle, whatever was the 2 or 3 year anniversary of her win. I believe it's the 3-year anniversary. She should either win and retire her reign, or what she should also do is have somebody actually beat her in one of those shows, really, because I think she should not be the ROH champion anymore, because it doesn't mean anything. As I said, when I was at the Manhattan Center, I was saying, hey, Athena, Ember Moon was main eventing, and there were many people outside the arena saying, oh, I didn't know that she was alive or dead, really. And, she's been on, Ring of Honor for a long time. There's actually a lot of fans who don't know Athena is actually in AEW because they've not really celebrated her reign and whatever, really. And honestly, I don't think she's had good opponents. And it's almost like with Ring of Honor shows. They've gotten around 1,500 people or less as average, really. So, clearly, I just think it's time for a new direction, really. She should not be champion that much longer. And then the good news is that if you put a title on her, like the AEW Women's Championship, the good thing about that is that it says, hey, you've spent so much time on Ring of Honor. Look at what you're doing now, really. So it shows everybody, hey, if I go to Ring of Honor, if I grow my skills, if I do a great job, if I use this as a developmental, or if I'm like a veteran that just needs more exposure, or if I'm a veteran that needs to bring up and help other people get better, now here's my promotion, really. So that really, really works. And then also too, like she can be a good heel because there's Billie Starkz. So if Billie Starkz can be like her henchwoman, and then also too, you can do something where Billie Starkz is a TBS champion, or almost like maybe she gets bullied by Athena, and then you do kind of like the student versus the teacher type of thing. So I do think that would be a really great dynamic. The next person that I would have is Thunder Rosa, and Thunder Rosa. Because she's over with the audience, people like her. She's from Mexico, so what would happen if they decide to do another show in Mexico, and then you have Mercedes Moné, just joking around, being another talent, and then you have Thunder Rosa cash in. Imagine the pipe, really. And then also too, Arena Mexico was last week, really, so there is going to be a huge Mexican audience watching AEW All In. So what would happen if you have Thunder Rosa win? What would happen if you do MJF versus Mystico, and then you have hair versus mask, and MJF gets his head shaved, and then you have Thunder Rosa pin Mercedes, really, or pin Tony Storm. I think that if you're going to have a babyface win the Casino Gauntlet match, you should have them pin Mercedes at you should have Mercedes win, have people boo, get pissed off. You have the title cash in, and then at Forbidden Door, you set up a triple threat: Tony Storm, Mercedes, and Thunder Rosa, or Willow, or whoever, really. That'd be a good option. And she's done a lot for the company. She has a very interesting Day of the Dead look. She can speak on the microphone. She's very emphatic. She has everything that you need for a wrestler. She can spit that hot fire, but also she's just a good option. The next option that I would say, and this is a controversial one, would be Marina Shafir. And the reason why I would do Marina Shafir as a winner is because she's part of the Death Riders. And honestly, like I said, like what has she? She hasn't really done anything. And she's kind of built as like this badass tomboy type of wrestler. So wouldn't it make sense to put a title on her? Wouldn't it make sense to kind of give people some sense of doubt? It's like, oh my God, is the Death Riders continuing? Because they can still continue after Moxley wins or loses the title, and if she actually wins and cashes in, really, that could create a sense of, okay, we don't know what the main event's going to be like, so it subverts expectations. The next person that I would do is Willow Nightingale, and this is going to be a controversial one because I think Willow Nightingale, and if you did Willow Nightingale and Mark Briscoe, or Willow Nightingale and Willow Nightingale and Eddie Kingston versus either Wheeler or Gabe Kidd and Marina Shafir, I think that's a match to have it all in. But Willow Nightingale, I think she's the one who should get it the most, really, because she's very over with the crowd. She just signed with AEW, and they really need to say, hey, if you sign with AEW, if you stay with us, you actually can become somebody. You don't become like Jade Cargill. You don't become like Mariah May and many other women who left AEW to be bigger deals in other companies. We have to show that if you stay with AEW, we can make you a big deal. You're not lost on the roster, really. Willow is a great wrestler. She's a powerhouse wrestler. She's wrestled in Anarchy in the Arena. She's taken hits by guys. She's given hits to guys. She's done a lot of things for the company, really. She's very, very over, and she honestly deserves. She's been the TBS champion, but she's never been like the AEW Women's Champion, and that would actually be good. That would be a good continuity, because I believe it was Mercedes beat her for the TBS Championship, and it felt like a usurper. It felt like giving in to Mercedes. So now you have Mercedes win, and then you have Willow come down and get that, and then you have a triple threat, really. And I think these are all great options. I think another option. And this would be a bad one, would be Mina Shirakawa, because you can do something like Mina Shirakawa pins Tony Storm or Mercedes Moné, or Tony Storm loses, Mercedes wins, and Mina Shirakawa wins, and then you see Mina Shirakawa pin her, and then Tony Storm's happy, and they're both doing the booby dance or something like that, like they're shaking their boobies on at All In, really. And the reason why I smile is because like that would be really funny and silly, and I think AEW would do that. But again, it'd feel like HLA, hot lesbian action, and that'll be kind of very objectifying. And then again, it goes with what I said, really. Like the sexual comedy is funny, but then it gets to a point of like, okay, you know what? This is where AEW always fails, is because you got to take your women more seriously. You can't just be booby shaking and doing fake lesbian kisses, because then it just says, okay, you know what? Maybe like, Tony Khan, is laughing backstage like an immature 5-year-old because he's a man child, or maybe like, he's jerking off backstage. I don't know. But the point of it is, it would be too comical. It would be too laughable if they do something like that. And you have to like say, okay, if you're talking about Mercedes and Tony Storm having the biggest match of all time, really, you have Mercedes win and you have Mina Shirakawa win and cash in, and then they do stupid booby shaking comedy, you're gonna hurt the show, really, because it's gonna say, okay, we have to fuck around, we have to be comical, we can't be serious, and that's just not a good look for AEW, because they have to get to a point of, taking shit seriously. The next, I think like the other person that I would have, I think, and I'm thinking to myself, like I think like you could do Hikaru Shida, but that would be a bad option as well, really. I think the two things about Hikaru Shida is that she's been champion for over a year. She's known for having really great matches. And I just think that, again, you can kind of surprise the audience by saying, hey, nobody was thinking about her, really, so let's just bring her back and have her win, really. That could be an option as well, really, because it's almost like, where the hell has she been? People are talking about Chelsea Green. If I'm correct, no, Will Ospreay's wife. I don't remember her name, but Will Ospreay's wife. She should not win, because then people are going to say, okay, well, Mortos is now in the main event. Now Will Ospreay's wife is getting like the AEW championship, women's championship. You can't really do that, because people are going to be like, okay, nepotism. Or you got to gigolo yourself, really, So, but the point of it is really that, there are a lot of good options for this. There's a lot of good surprises that you can do. But I would say this, that ultimately, I think that if I was booking, I would have Mercedes Moné beat Tony Storm, and then automatically you have a woman come in that's a babyface. It's like either Willow, and I think it should be like Willow, number one, really, or Athena, number one, and then and then they cash in, and then it leads to a triple threat of Forbidden Door. That'd be the way that I do, because at least Mercedes gets it, but then she is angry and furious, and she's a Hellcat, because it's like, once again, somebody, took a shit on her parade, really, So I really think that would be the way to do it, really. And it would get the new champion over, really, because you also have to do something where, in a way, you want to build more stars, because just like with the men's division, like the Casino Gauntlet for the men's division should really say, hey, look at these 10 people that are going to be fighting over the men's heavyweight title for the next year. Hey, look at these 10 women that are going to be fighting over the women's heavyweight title for next year. And you have to treat those people like a big deal. And I think also the other thing you have to do is have both these winners actually cash in and be successful, because you cannot do something like, say, hey, we're going to pull a TNA Wrestling where we're going to have Scott Steiner come down and take it. Hey, we're going to pull a TNA Wrestling, and we're going to actually have you can cash it in for the women's TBS title. You can cash it in for the ROH women's title. You can cash it in for the women's tag team title. But if you go after the AEW women's championship, I will be fucking damned if it is a successful cash in. And remember, like one of the lowest points of this year was Christian Cage trying to cash in on Jon Moxley. Like, you took like what would have been the best pay-per-view of the year, and now really the best pay-per-view is Double or Nothing so far this year, because of how much they fucked that up, really. So these Casino Gauntlet cash-ins, they have to mean something. And like I've said before, and like I said again, if Tony Storm wins, I think you have a heel cash in on her, and that would be Athena. Or if you have Mercedes win, you have a babyface in Thunder Rosa, Willow Nightingale, or somebody else as well, really. But also, too, you have to have somebody who's serious. It cannot be Mina Shirakawa doing the booby and the butt dance type of thing, really. Because, again, you're trying to set this up as the greatest women's match of all time, really, we shouldn't be doing 48-hour film project level comedy.